Hey guys, Ken Stress Tactical. So I want to talk to you about two things you hear people talking a lot about on the internet and in classes and stuff like that. One is the subsecond draw. You see a lot of people practicing trying to get that really fast first shot from appendix in particular, subsecond draw and time to first shot. And my question is it realistic, right? It's not that it's bad that you're training for that and that's a training goal, but is it a realistic thing for real life? And I'm going to get to that in a second. And then the other thing is you see people talk about when things start to kick off with a potential physical altercation, people throwing their hands up, bleeding themselves a little bit, and going, "Hey man, I don't want a problem." So yesterday, some jackhole crashed into my car. I'm in the left lane on the highway. Guy's trying to get over because we're about to exit to go to another highway, and he's doing trying to be aggressive, beat up old cab, and he figures if he kind of does that, I guess I'll jam on the brakes and then he'll be able to cut in front of me, kind of an aggressive tactic, and it didn't work for him because he hit me. Took off his mirror, damage to his door and his quarter panel, damage on the side of my car or whatever. Pulled the shoulder, get out, and I'm pissed, man. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Probably in retrospect, I probably should have toned it down a bit, but I was pissed, man. And so this guy's like, oh, yelling at me, and I'm like, dude, he's like, oh, you saw me in your mirror, you could have let me in. It's like, no, man, you got to yield, and you're wrong, you're at fault. And so he quickly turned it into a racial issue and started to escalate it, saying that I didn't let him in, and I'm saying he's at fault because he's black. And I'm like, are you serious? He's like, you even have a black car, you're so racist. And I'm like, I guess having a black car makes you racist nowadays. So I'm like, and this is where I escalated and I was wrong. I'm like, you're an asshole, right? Which completely wrong. It's not the good Christian thing to do. It's not a good person thing to do, and it's not good when you want to de-escalate something. But I was pissed and whatever, and that's on me. So learning point, right? So as soon as I called him an asshole, he's like, "You want to fight?" And I was like an older, 50, 60-year-old Jamaican, West Indian guy, whatever he was, heavy accent and stuff. And as soon as you said you want to fight and kind of started to get this stance, he reaches back in his jacket pocket, and he's feeling for something. But it was kind of like, right now I got stuff in my pocket and I know it's there. For him, it was kind of like, oh shit, it's not. He didn't say this, but I could see it, like, oh shit, whatever I'm hoping is there is not there. And he went back into his car, and I'm like in this bad spot of if I was at work, and this is what I was thinking, I would have had my hand on my gun and started to move forward and grabbed him, or looked in while I had my hand on my gun, like, what's he grabbing type of thing. But I'm not at work, and this is off duty, and we're kind of in an intermediate distance where I'm not close enough to grab him. And off duty, if I start to move in, then I'm being kind of aggressive, right? I'm off duty. I should and I'm not trying to arrest someone, right? I'm in an unknown situation of what's going on here. And if I start to move in, he might see it as aggressive on a video or something. If there's definitely cameras on that highway, people drive by with their cameras, whatever. I don't want this to look aggressive, but I don't want to get hurt either. So this is all happening like that. And as soon as he, said that, and I saw that, I'm like, hey man, I don't want a problem. No, I don't want to fight you. And I started to move back, and I was still like, man, I'm not back far enough, to be safe or behind some cover or something. If he whips out, his smoke wagon, and if he comes out with a knife or something, like, that's not going to be good either. Because by the time I get my gun out, it's going to be a problem, right? It's just not. It was the worst distance. I would have rather been right up on him or way back away from him, but it was what it was. And fortunately, and whatever he did, he came out with something. Again, roll quarters, brass knuckles, whatever he had. Probably not brass knuckles, but he had something, and he put it in his jacket pocket and pulled his hand back out. Had he not, I probably would have moved back behind my car and, kind of figured things out from there. But so one, I feel that doing this, it's something I, remembered because a lot of people have talked about it. Like, hey, that, that works. It de-escalated him. Didn't stop him from grabbing whatever it was he grabbed, but it de-escalated him. The other thing was when you're trying to get a sub-second draw and you're sitting there in the range, especially you see a lot of guys that practice this, they got their hands on their shirt or their sweatshirt and they're pulling up and they're getting their sub-second draw from appendix, but they're not doing it. Now I was wearing this jacket, I think it was a different zipped up sweatshirt, and I don't remember if this jacket was zipped up or not, but think about that. I'm processing information, not ready to go to guns. It's an unknown. What, is he just getting brass knuckles? Is he getting pepper spray? I'm like thinking about all these things. So I'm processing information. It's not like I'm sitting there waiting for the buzzer to go off to draw. So you have the human reaction time, which is somewhere around 1/4 of a second, 2/10 of a second, somewhere in that neighborhood, where, it's kind of like if someone jams on the brakes in front of you, you can't immediately apply the brakes. It just takes that time for your eyes and brain, everything to process, and then your foot to step on the pedal. Same kind of thing here. So I'm processing information and deciding how to act, the OODA loop, right? So he does turn around, let's say, with a weapon, gun, knife, whatever, tire iron. There's that time to react on what it is, and he's coming from a spot I can't really see what's going on, so he's already, it's almost like that thing's going to appear instantly. Can't do anything once I realize what it is for that 1/4 of a second. Now I have to draw from this, and both sweatshirts are kind of tapered on the bottom. Get that out of the way, and if my jacket was zipped up, and again I can't remember if it was or wasn't, grab both and hope that I'm getting both under the stress, draw, and and take the shot. So the question is, and my buddy Rick brought this up a few times in the past. We were talking about this. Is it his thing is it realistic? And I think it's a good skill to probably practice and to have, but one of the things Rick suggested, and I think it's spot on after going through this situation, is maybe it's more realistic to be doing something else. I've heard of other people saying, you can read a paragraph or something, or have somebody with a book there and start reading the page and let them go for as long as you want, or make them turn the page or whatever, and then at some point then hit the buzzer and then have them react. The other thing is what if you got things in your hands, right? We don't, sometimes we got things in our hands. A good example was later that day. I'm walking through a parking lot on the border of the Bronx, right? Bad area. I used to work in the Bronx, and situational awareness, whatever. I know we're on the border of a bad area, and you see people or whatever, but there was a couple of SUVs and vans, and all of a sudden, boom, in between these vans, 3 or 4 kids, and they look a little rough, and they had papers in their hands, like, "Excuse me, sir," and I'm carrying shopping bags in my hand, and I was just kind of like didn't make eye contact with them. I looked at their hands, make sure they didn't have any weapons, but it's kind of like that. And they were 7 yards away, but it was like, boom, instantly they were there. You're seeing heads and you're seeing people and, being situational aware. But now, let's say that first guy, let's say he's the guy who's got a knife or got a gun. Now he's 7 yards to my right. I'm carrying something, I'm walking, and my head's kind of turned this way, so I'm just looking for hands, looking at waistbands. I see a weapon. Now I gotta drop something, turn, draw from concealment, and engage moving targets, because they're moving towards me and moving on an angle. While there's also other people walking around the parking lot. So the whole day got me thinking about all of these things. So I definitely think this approach is kind of like a good idea. Also puts your hands in front of your face to kind of fend off a shot, but I think in this particular thing, it de-escalated, right? I kind of bladed off, put my hands out there, and no, man, I don't want to fight you. I don't want a problem. So it prepares you, de-escalated this guy in this case. And then the sub-second draw, I think I'm going to start playing with in some of my classes, working on people's draw from concealment, and then, maybe having them read something or whatever, and then, in between doing that, because you're processing information, right? You're reading the sentences, or, again, I've seen people do, take a red square peg and put it in the red square hole, and then you got the blue ones and they're, whatever, shapes and colors and lining things up. So you're processing information, you're doing things, and then hit the buzzer and see if they can get their sub-second draw, right? Now you got things in your hand and you're processing information. Now you got to go ahead and try to get that sub-second draw. So not sure that the sub-second draw is the way to go all the time. Not bad if you're training to get that faster draw to first shot. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, if that's all you're worrying about, or if that's where you're stopping, you're probably, selling yourself short, or screwing yourself, basically, because you're probably going to be processing information. And then the other thing was, I can feel my adrenaline. I could feel that fight or flight. I could feel it in my chest and down I could just feel like the fight or flight thing where the adrenaline was pumping. So, maybe getting your blood pumping a little bit, maybe running around the range, moving some kettlebells and throwing a brute force sandbag or something like that, getting your system pumping there. And now try to do this, take a square peg and put it in a square hole, and the blue thing in the blue hole, or reading something or whatever, and then have somebody hit the shot timer, and then see if you can get your sub-second draw, or see what kind of draws you can get. So just kind of my thoughts based on some discussions, I've had recently, and some things I've seen people train on and talk about, and then some real world events that, wasn't anything lethal, but certainly, could have gone down that road, whether it wasn't lethal or just, physical or whatever. So let me know in the comments what you think about, sub-second draws, and, taking that posture and trying to de-escalate things. And love to hear from you guys and see what you think. All right, guys, stay safe, train hard. I'll see you on the range.